Hey everyone, Cole here with Classic Mini DIY. Thank you so much for joining me on the next episode of the Operation Bad Wolf. I definitely thought all of these episodes were going to be done, but here we are with the engine back out and on the floor inside my workshop. So before we get started, I do want to mention one thing, and that's the subject of my last video. I want to thank you guys. The feedback I got was overwhelmingly positive and extremely humbling, so thank you so much for all that feedback. It really helped with that whole situation. And yeah, so thanks everybody. Thanks for watching the channel and thanks for being so supportive. Now, for the engine, what I've got to do today is put the engine pulley back on. I've got to make sure that I mark where top dead center is so that I can time this properly, you know, once everything's back together and it's in the car. And then I'm going to be installing my head, and then I'm just going to kind of be buttoning everything back up. Now let's get back down to the engine. I'm going to show you guys how to put your pulley on the right way because there is a little bit of finickiness with this. And as you guys can see, this pulley is now black and beautiful and wonderful. I was going to get an MED pulley, but I needed to save the money for that Super 998. And one very specific thing that I am very excited to share with you guys, and you know what it is? I am coming to International IMM60. That's right. My dad and I are going to be flying over to London, probably, maybe. I don't know if we're going to land in London or if we're going to land in Manchester, but the goal is to get to Manchester so I can drive one of Alex Toon's cars with Tom, with Alex Hart and Alex Toon, and we're all going to drive down to International Mini Meet, hang out together, and have a good old time looking at minis. Now, all the logistics are still kind of up in the air. I don't know if we're gonna camp. I don't know if my dad and I are gonna get a hotel. I really don't know what's up with all that yet. So if you ask me, I won't be able to answer that yet. But there are a few things I do know. I will be hanging out with Total Car Reviews, Alex Toon and Alex Hart for the majority of the trip. Also, I will be obviously wearing Classic Mini DIY shirts and probably a hat. Maybe, I don't know. So you'll be able to find me that way, and if you find me, I will give you free stickers until I run out of stickers. 1 sticker per person. But that's still a little ways off. Obviously, it's down in August. So get excited. I'm excited, and I'm really amped to meet everybody who is overseas and I otherwise wouldn't be able to meet. So anyways, let's get back into the engine. Okay, so when we left off before, we were looking at a loose timing cover. I kind of explained why this timing cover is so neat and cool and stuff. Now, what we need to do is put our pulley back on our crankshaft here. And in order to do that, there's a small keyway inside this pulley, and you need to line that up with the keyway on your crank and slide this on. Now, whether you have a normal timing cover or you're using a fancy MED one like this, you will need to leave it a little loose. In the MED's case, it's a little bit easier. You can leave this front cover off and loose a little bit. With the standard cover, you kind of have to do it all while you're putting the gasket on and everything, which can be kind of a pain in the butt, but it is doable. And basically you slide this on and in while it's loose, and then you kind of centralize this unit over the whole pulley assembly here. And what that does is it makes sure that you have an even seal around your pulley, and that will help prevent your pulley from leaking. Now, pulleys leak, so you might do all of this and it still might leak, but at least you can say you did everything you could to prevent it. But let's go ahead and line this sucker up. Just like that. And then once you've done that, you're going to want to tighten all of these bolts down as best you can. Some of them you aren't going to be able to reach with the pulley in, and that's normal. What you'll do is tighten all the stuff down, take the pulley back off, and then tighten the other ones down because the pulley will already be kind of stationary at that point. And then once you've done that, go ahead and work your pulley back out and tighten down the bolts that you couldn't reach before. And so now that's all tightened down, and you can put your pulley back on and you're going to put your bolt in. Now there are a couple style bolts. This is This is kind of like the early style bolt that you'd put on, and then kind of a radial washer here. I do recommend going ahead and putting thread locker on this. You really don't want this to come loose. It'll make your engine run like garbage, and then, you know, there could be way worse issues after that. Put some of the smelly thread locker on here. Now, this bolt needs to be torqued down to whatever torque spec is popping up on the screen right now. And in order to torque it down, probably the easiest way to do it is to put a little like a punch like this in one of the teeth of the flywheel. That'll keep the flywheel from moving while you torque this sucker down. All right, and once you have that torque down, you are gonna wanna bend up these lock tabs. This can be kind of a pain in the butt to get in there and do that, but you just use like a pair of pliers, something like that, and it should be grabbable, and you should be able to grab those and lift them up. All right, lock tab bent up, and so now what we're gonna be doing is marking where top dead center is, and it gets really easy to turn the engine when you have your pulley on here. Let me just pull you guys a little closer here. Now, as you can see at the top here, we have our piston, and when you rotate it, obviously they're moving up and down, cool beans. Now, you are gonna wanna be marking top dead center. That's the point of hesitation. So as you can see, engine spinning. I don't know if this is the right direction, but it's coming up. It hesitates and then goes back down, hesitates, goes back down, hesitates, go back down. You get the idea. So what I'm doing here is I'm gonna bring it up right to where it's hesitating. There we go. And right down here, what I'm gonna do is ruin this perfectly good timing cover with a little mark. And that little mark is gonna show me where top dead center is, you know, when the engine's spinning over. So I've already got a sweet little mark inside, like a divot inside my pulley here. And so that lines up with this bolt hole pretty good, but I want something a little bit more specific than that. So what I'm gonna do is get a Sharpie, and I'm gonna go ahead and put that on there. Hopefully that didn't give too many people a minor heart attack. If the guys from MED are watching, don't hate me. I really just needed a mark, and I thought this would be a better solution than doing something like an actual punch into this beautiful aluminum. So there is our mark, cool stuff. Now we can move on to the head and get that torqued back down and on the engine here. Now this is something that I was back and forth on a bunch because I wasn't sure whether or not I wanted to replace the head gasket. And I did all this research. I was like, should I replace it? Should I not replace it? And what it boiled down to, guys, is that this is 30 United States dollar dues. And it frankly is just not worth it not to replace the head gasket. I mean, why would I risk the head gasket blowing if it's 30 bucks to replace? So I've mentioned this a few times in a lot of my videos. Specifically, I do have one about torquing the head down, which should pop up in the corner. But the head gasket actually reads top on one side there. That's how you know that, well, this is the top side. If you rotate it over, the other side has nothing on it. So big holes go to the back. That's where the push rods go through, and then you just lower this sucker down on there. Now, this is a little unorthodox, the way that I did this. What I mean by unorthodox is that you might see I have some push rods in here still, and there are some push rods in my head. And this is probably not the recommended way to do this. I really didn't want to loosen up my whole valve train again just in order to get this head off, so I did take it all off with the push rods still in place. I'm sure I'm gonna get some flack for that, but you know what? Whatever. Now, if you're wondering why on earth I would do something so completely and utterly and dastardly awful, like leaving the push rods in there, well, it is out of laziness. So we're gonna lower this back down on here, taking extra care to line up those push rods, and we'll get this sucker lined up. And look at that, not too much fuss at all right there. So that went back on. And next up, we're gonna go ahead and re-torque down our head. All right, and there we have it. It's torqued back down. Things are looking real good back here. Things are looking real good in the front. Let's see if we can spin this over. See some valves move. How neat is that? That's right. Very neat. Now, what do we do next? Well, we could put on the valve cover. So I guess our old valve cover is going back on. And of course, to do that, we will need a brand new valve cover gasket. You can get reusable silicone ones. I had one, but I gave it to a friend. So before we put this on there, one thing we are going to definitely want to do is really get this cleaned up because it's oily. Now, one of the most important parts that you clean is the back side of that valve cover face, because the back side is where oil can leak down and cook onto your exhaust manifold, which it won't hurt anything per se, but it will be really, really smelly and it sucks. Now this actually gives me a good opportunity to show you guys. One thing you do want to take extra care of is making sure that the gasket doesn't fold up underneath itself. It's quite easy to do when this is off the car like this and everything, but it's one thing that you're really going to want to take a second to keep an eye out for, because if it rolls over, it defeats the purpose of the gasket and then it won't work correctly. So just keep that in mind while you're doing this. But these, tighten them down evenly. Keep an eye on the gasket while it's getting tightened. In my case, it's looking real good. Nice and tight there. All right, so now that we have all that put together, the next thing I want to do is reinstall my radiator and my fan. Now, a lot of people might be curious, Colt, why are you gonna install your radiator now instead of waiting until it's in the car? Won't you run the risk of damaging it, et cetera, et cetera? Well, with my Mark I Mini, there is a thing that happens. It's very frustrating. There is a shroud around the body of the car, and it makes it incredibly difficult to get your hand down in there, install all the nuts and bolts on the radiator. So being able to install it outside of the car like this is gonna make my life much, much easier here in the future. So that's kind of like the short and sweet of it. But what we gotta do is get our pulley, put that on. Then we need to put our fan on, then we'll put the radiator as well as the lower bracket on down here. All pretty simple stuff. Now first we have the pulley here, that just goes on just like that. And one thing you are gonna need to do is line up the holes for the bolts. Now next up is installing the fan, and this is a hot topic for debate. There is a right way to put this fan on. See this ugly side here with the ribs? See this pretty side with the not ribs? Well, the pretty side is the side that faces your engine. Now, a lot of people will argue this. I don't know why people argue about this so much, but it's so simple. If you look at the fan right down there, if you look at the fan right down there at the bottom, what that reads is engine side. On some of the newer fans, they'll have like an F or something like that. But the moral of the story is your fan goes like this, plain and simple. So let's go ahead and install that right back on here. So that really is gonna wrap up what I'm gonna do on this episode. Now, I know that I have different clothes on. It's because I filmed this over a few days. But like I said, I am going to be going to International Mini-Meet 60. Woo! I know, super exciting stuff. I'm super excited. I'm gonna be going with my dad. He and I are gonna be flying over and either landing in London or Manchester. I'm gonna be connecting up with Tom Shorrock at Total Car Reviews, Alex Hart and Alex Toon. The three of them, my dad and myself, and I'm sure some other folks, some people on their side of the pond, are gonna be all driving down to the International Mini-Meet. Alex is probably gonna be loaning me his blue automatic, so I'm gonna actually have a Mini to drive, and it's gonna be blue. I mean, it's like the stars are just aligning right now. And if you're staying somewhere near the event, I'm actually staying at the Village Hotel in Bristol. I'm not gonna tell you guys my room number because, well, I don't know it, and also I need a little bit of sleep during the event. And like I said at the beginning of the event, I don't know all the logistics yet, but I will have stickers, I might have some other stuff, free stuff to give out, who knows. And if you find me at the event, find me, I'll be wearing a shirt, a hat, I'll be with all the other goons. And if you tell me you're a fan of the channel, I'll give you some free stuff if I have any left. Keep an eye out for more updates about this as it gets closer to the event. Obviously, that's not until August, so we've got a few months left, but I am so excited. And I can't wait to meet all you guys. But until the next episode where I tackle the rest of this gearbox or we get more into Bad Wolf Mini, enjoy those minis and motor on.